In the original Algorand paper, they say, if we assume that 80% of the stake is held by honest people, and we're going to elect a committee of size K, then we can actually figure out what is the probability that 2/3 of the elected committee is honest, right? And that's when consensus will fail. And that's when you could have a fork or a double spend attack, and you would lose this instant finality. And so they can do an analysis. It's very straightforward, right? To say, well, the probability of a random committee of size K being elected and having more than 1/3 dishonest or less than 2/3 honest is the probability of binomial distribution with K samples with probability 0.8 is less than 2K/3. And you can calculate this exactly. And they give some suggested parameters in the white paper saying, we wanted the chance that a malicious committee, a committee that's more than 1/3 dishonest or less than 2/3 honest is selected, and they choose some parameters like 10 to the minus 12. We want this probability to be less than 10 to the minus 12 under the assumption that 80% of the stake is honest. And with this failure probability, if they produce a new block every 4 seconds, so like a new committee, say every 4 seconds, it takes, there's an expected time of 128,000 years before you elect a committee that's 1/3 dishonest, because these concentration bounds are really very strong. Right, the binomial is very highly concentrated. And you can get a nice bound if you just take the turnoff bound, the probability that a binomial where you select n people with probability p, the probability you're more than a 1 minus delta fraction away from your expectation decreases exponentially in the committee size n. And so in this case, if 80% of the stake is honest, so in this case, P is 0.8, then the probability of a dishonest committee decreases like e to the minus n/90. This is an upper bound on this. So you can be sure that you won't get a committee with, a dishonest committee with more than this probability. So it decreases exponentially. So if you make n big enough, you can make your probability of a bad committee go to 0 exponentially quickly. And so this is the determinant. This is how they choose how big their committees are going to be. And one of the arguments for doing this is basically that incentives are really complicated. And so Algorand sort of very publicly adopts this sort of incentive-free design. So there's no rewards for block producers, there's no slashing for misbehavior, and there's no voting because they say it's really hard to design these kind of incentives.